Get more confidence. Get that promotion. Get moving up the corporate ladder. Get a better gig with an MBA from Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, now you can take your career to a whole new level with a full-time MBA in College Station and convenient weekend options at Houston City Center. Texas A&M has a program to suit your schedule. Visit mba.tamu.edu. And Giga Maggie.
Howdy, welcome to Mays MasterCast. I'm Shannon Deere, the Assistant Dean for Graduate Programs, here with your magnificent host, Ben Wiggins.
Good morning, Shannon. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
It's a beautiful day in Aggieland.
It is. Did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. We went out to some land that our family has a small ranch out in Karnes City or near Karnes City. And we went out and did a little hunting this weekend.
Oh.
And hunting is a little bit of a misnomer because we were really just sitting in a deer blind watching deer walk by. I probably saw 40 deer this weekend and nobody ever, like, we had guns in the deer blind and nobody ever seriously thought about taking a shot.
Okay.
We shot. There were 4 of us. We saw 40 deer. We fired 0 shots. It was kind of fun.
Okay.
You know, just sitting out and chatting in the blind and watching deer walk around.
Okay. That's an interesting approach to hunting. I mean, it's the approach I'm more comfortable with, but Sarah Yaksh would probably be screaming at the audio right now.
True enough. And my lovely wife, Maddie, and our niece, Quinn, and our nephews, Knox and Nash, made sugar cookies this weekend, and Brielle contributed by sitting in her high chair and flinging food around the room. So that was great.
Good job, Brielle. She's advanced with that contribution to the sugar cookies. I'm impressed.
She's a team player.
Today on the show, we have Chad Riley. Chad is a graduate of the 2015 Full-Time MBA class here at Mays. Prior to his MBA, Chad worked in the financial services sector and also spent a year leading a team of Christian missionaries through more than 10 different countries. After graduating from Mays, Chad jumped quickly into executive leadership roles within the nonprofit sector, enjoying leading teams through strategic planning, corporate debt financing, budgeting and reporting, improvement technology implementations, and financial planning. Chad is frequently recognized as a family man and loves spending time with his amazing wife, 3 thriving kids, and 1 dog. He currently serves as the team leader of accounting and data integrity for the nonprofit organization called Crew. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Welcome indeed.
We welcome Chad Riley to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing awesome. I've had my morning coffee, feeling good.
That's great. Did you have a nice weekend?
Yeah, I had a great weekend. We didn't really do much, but having 3 little kids, just wanted to get outside and got that job. I checked the box for that. We went to a park for a couple hours, and we're also selling our house. So for those that have sold your house, you know, a lot of cleaning. And so we cleaned for hours on Saturday. And then also we had a showing on Monday morning. So we cleaned on Sunday too. So cleaning in park, really exciting weekend.
Where are you moving to, or what's the impetus for selling your house?
Yeah. So I recently switched jobs about 4 months ago, and I've been working just outside of Houston, and we're moving to Orlando, Florida. So big move for the family, but we're excited. And once we sell, we're heading out.
Fantastic. What is your favorite superpower?
I love the movie Benjamin Button, and I love that concept, right? So
Yeah.
I was thinking, if I could just live my life like a normal guy between now and when I die, whenever that is, it's a year from now, 40 years from now, and then at that point, start regressing back to a baby. So I'd be able to interact with my kids more, experience other decades. You know, I think that'd be pretty cool. And my wife would be able to take care of me too for a while.
Yeah, that does sound like fun. Where did you grow up?
So that's always been a hard question for me. I was born in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and moved to Tampa, Florida when I was little. But I kind of have like my life segmented into the different buckets. So all of elementary school, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. All of middle school, I was in Avon, Connecticut. And then all of high school, I was in Cincinnati, Ohio. So that's the quick answer. And like in grad school, when people are like, hey, where are you from? The short answer used to be Cincinnati, because that's where I went to high school. I went to college outside of Cincinnati. But I'm so far removed from it now. I just say I'm from Texas.
There you go.
Yeah.
Why did you guys move around so much?
Initially, so my dad was a money manager for different banks. And during the late 80s, early 90s, when bank is basically when all the banks became Bank of America. So my dad ended up ultimately working for Bank of America out of Charlotte, and then left to work for an investment company up in Connecticut. So just kind of my dad's job that moved us around. Okay.
And then Cincinnati, what was in Cincinnati?
Yeah. So my dad worked for another investment company in Cincinnati, Ohio. So he was a mutual fund manager, managed one of the mutual funds for a firm downtown Cincinnati. And so he's now retired and just plays golf all the time. So for people that are into that, he's getting better.
What did your mom do during that time?
Yeah, my mom stayed home with me. So this is one thing that, I don't know. Do you have any kids, Ben?
Yeah, we have a 13-month-old.
Oh, awesome. Congrats, man.
Thank you.
So we have 3 kids. So Adam's 3.5, Lily's just turned 2, and then Chloe's about 9 months old. So I've been thinking a lot about my mom. So my mom stayed home with us, my sister and I, my entire life. And she was just like the most awesome mom. Like if she was going to go do something and we had a babysitter coming over, she would have a checklist ready for the babysitter. Like, you're going to read this chapter in this book. You're going to read this. Remember the Encyclopedia Britannica? Like, we would have like different pages marked. She would plan trip. Like when we were in Connecticut, it's awesome because you're close to the mountains, you're close to the beach, you're close to all this stuff. So we would do day trips and stuff. And so, I cherish the time that I had with my mom, and so thankful she was able to stay home with us.
That's fantastic. Do you now, if you could tweak something about the process of, how you experienced childhood, is there anything that you would want, that you'd be curious about? Hey, what if it had happened this way instead?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, actually, that's something that I've thought about, and I've seen it, us moving as kind of a blessing in a way. So when I was little, I was always excited. I love new things. I'm a real adaptable person, like new experiences. So I was never scared by the moves. But I think what I lost is kind of that sense of tribalism. So like I was a huge Braves fan. We went to World Series games, playoffs games when we were in Charlotte. And it's easy to be a Braves fan in the early 90s, right? But but at either rate, when you move away and none of your friends are Braves fans, then eventually that kind of leaves you. And so I don't have kind of that tribal mentality of like, this is my thing, this is my place, these are my people. And so I see that as a blessing because it allows me to see things from different perspectives and not kind of cling back to the norm, if that makes sense. But I missed out on things like when I moved in 8th grade. The girl that I liked all in 8th grade, the day that I'm leaving, she's like, "Oh, I've liked you this whole time." I'm like,
"No."
So it wouldn't have worked out between us anyways because my wife's my soulmate. But come on.
What was your very first job?
My first job, I worked for Buffalo Wild Wings. So I think in different areas of the country, it's a little different. But so we called it BW3s there, and I was kind of like a cashier / the guy that brings your food out. So.
Yeah. Any funny stories come out of that?
I didn't take that job super seriously. I worked with a couple of buddies of mine. At the time, we had a manager who at the time felt like he was 40 years old. He was probably like 22. And we were the guys that would go into the back and into the refrigerated closet, dunk our hands into the pickle tub, and just eat pickles for snacks.
Yes. So
I want to just take this opportunity to formally apologize to anyone that was eating at Buffalo Wild Wings in 1998 in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm sorry.
That's great. Give us 60 seconds on your road through Maze.
So I was overseas for a year, and during that time, I really felt that it was my calling to use my administrative giftings to help finance offices of nonprofits. So I started applying for finance jobs all over the world, like U.S., abroad, everywhere. And I think, looking back, I'm a cusper, but I think I was a typical millennial. I was like, I don't really have any experience. I don't really have the resume, but I should get this job, right? So I learned pretty quickly that that wasn't the case. So I just kept getting denial after denial.
Yeah.
So during that time, I was like, I would love to further my education. I'm a learner. I love the experience of an MBA. So I went to the Texas Tour event. I don't know if they're still doing those or not. And I met Gabe Crosby. And I was like, so A&M was there, UT was there, all the Texas schools were there. And had such a great conversation. He introduced me to Chris Reed. So Chris Reed, I credit him for the reason I came to Mays. After my conversation with Chris and Gabe, I was like, A&M is the place for me. I didn't apply to any other grad schools. And really it was, the values, the culture, and just the community feel for me that it's like, this is going to be a great place to go to school.
I love that answer. I all that resonates very deeply with me. This I've said on this podcast before, this university and the community around it has always kind of felt like home for me, which is not a coincidence because I'm from here. But after living on the West Coast for 8 years, coming back, I was a little bit worried about culture shock. And as it turned out, I didn't need to be worried. This was a great place to come back to. You recently became the team leader of accounting and data integrity for Crew. How did you end up with this job?
So short answer on this is the Aggie Network. So, one of the things that you learn is the power of networking and the power of the Aggie Network. Well, I can tell you it's real. So our conversations with Gabe and Chris, they mentioned it. I didn't think it was going to impact me so quickly. So about 3 years ago, I was at a conference in Dallas, and I looked at one of the keynote speakers was the CFO of Crew. And I was like, oh, cool. That's a big Christian organization. I'd love to meet this guy.
Yep.
Send me a message on LinkedIn. Will you give me some have coffee with me? And his assistant got back, and we got it scheduled. The next year, same conference, I sent the same thing. We met up again. We had great conversation, and I really appreciated his time. When the pandemic hit, I was like, I want to go reach out to people that I really respect who are really wise about career advice. I wasn't looking for a job, frankly. And this role came up in our conversation, and the rest is history. What does data integrity mean to Crew? It seems like an interesting title and job description, whatever you want to call it, for a faith-oriented organization. So what is it they want you to do? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say it's like an interesting title for a faith organization. I feel like data integrity is even more important for a faith organization. So we have a lot of stakeholders. We have donors. We have our staff. We have God. We're getting these resources, and we need to steward them well. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit about Crew. So Crew operates about $800 million in revenue annually across the world. We have 19,000 employees across over 190 different countries. Yeah. We have over 20 different ministries inside of Crew, and then over 20 different subsidiaries under the Crew umbrella, over 15 international groups under this umbrella. So it's a complex organization, and there's a lot of moving parts. So data integrity is really critical. So making sure the data is entered and recorded in an accurate and timely manner. Because if you don't have good data, it's hard to make good decisions. It's hard to be transparent. And really, it's hard to demonstrate good stewardship if you don't have control of your numbers.
By the way, I appreciate that you're a person who can say both data and data, because just as with the earlier portion of our conversation, you're bridging the gap between the data people and the data people.
I did that intentionally, Ben. That was good.
In terms of the data that you're tracking, what is it that you're paying the most attention to? I mean, you mentioned some of the financial numbers, you mentioned the employment numbers, you mentioned the ministry numbers. Of those, is I assume you're getting data on all of those things to some degree or another. But what is it? What are you paying the most attention to? Like, what are you tracking the hardest?
Yeah. So we have about over 50 different people in the finance group at Crew.
Yeah.
So my team specifically is focusing on accounting, data compliance, and tax. And so it kind of depends on what area of focus. But so tax is a big area of focus right now for us, sales tax.
Okay.
We want to make sure, so we're selling, we sell products to people all over the world and pretty much all 50 states. And so we need to make sure that we're recording accurately with all the different state, city, municipality, parish laws in Louisiana, that we're recording numbers accurately so that way we can pay the appropriate tax. So that's an example of one area of focus. We want to make sure that we're above reproach and that we're paying everything that we need to and when we need to pay it.
Yeah. Above reproach is a great philosophy, especially for a faith organization. What's been the most challenging part of your transition into this?
That's an easy one. I think, two things. One, kind of corporate structure. So learning Crew and the way we work with our subsidiaries. We have our own insurance company and we have our own property management company, some of which are for-profit entities. Mm-hmm. So the corporate structure is really unique, and that's been really fun to engage with. But from a leadership perspective, I have 6 corporate accountants that work with me. I have not met any of them in person. And so one of my big takeaways from the MBA program is a critical aspect of leading a team well is building that foundation of trust, and finding creative ways to build trust when you're not rubbing shoulders with each other, when you're not having conversations next to the coffee pot, has been interesting, but things are going good, and I'm really enjoying it.
What do you feel like in terms of your MBA? Maybe it's accounting or maybe it's something else. What's the MBA course that's helping you the most?
Oh, that's a great question. It's funny. I just hired on a girl. She was in public accounting, and she has her CPA. And I told her the other day, I was like, listen, you're a better accountant than I am. I just want you to know that straight off the bat. And that's true for sure. So it wasn't my accounting courses. I can tell you that much. My favorite professor and the class that had the most meaningful impact happens to be the same. It's my management class with Mike Wesson.
Oh, yeah.
Man, there's so many different things that I can think back to that I've applied through that class. The most tangible and timely, we had a mock layoff experience.
Yes.
And I can still remember it so vividly. I had a woman sitting across the table from me that I'm laying off. So I'm telling her, today's your last day. And she's sitting there shaking. And she has made her lip quiver. Her arm is shaking. Her bracelets on her hand are jingling. Like, this is still like in my mind. And I'm sitting there having to tell her. And she's like, please, I can do anything. I can work part-time. And so in this particular exercise, that wasn't an option. So I had to tell her, that's not going to work. Well, about 3 months after graduating from Mays, I had my first layoff and I had to let someone go. And it was the exact same experience. I mean, it was kind of like a flashback. Same words were said, same emotions were conveyed. And similarly, there was no plan B. It was, you have to go. And so that was just a super tangible representation of something that really helped me in a timely way.
Yeah, I remember that exercise as well. I remember the face of the woman that I had to lay off as well. And I kind of had, it's not Stockholm syndrome, but like the because that's the wrong thing. But I had I would then see her in the hallways periodically after that. And like for a quarter second, every time I saw her, I would think, what are you still doing here? I thought I had to lay you off.
I thought I was clear about this.
So, and then it would be like, is she gonna be mad at me or something? And then I remembered, no, it was an exercise. Nothing actually happened. So that was an interesting one for me. But what struck me about your story was, I think that exercise is as much about striking the balance between, like the empathy that is necessary for a really, really sensitive and personal process like that versus getting the result that you have to get, which is communicating clearly with the person about, any severance that may be happening, what the terms of their departure are going to be, all of that. Like, there's a lot of business to it and there's a lot of personal to it, which is, I think, why that is so challenging.
Absolutely. And just the HR law involved with it too. You don't want to say the wrong thing during that.
Yeah, no question. Having started your career in the private sector, one of the mindsets we seek to develop at Maze is the social impact mindset. What advice would you give to your past self after having made the switch from private sector into a very nonprofit focused organization?
One thing that lacked, this was kind of across the board, I didn't get much support from many people. There was a lot of confusion. My professional career was going great. Things were really lining up where they needed to line up. And so I think there was more confusion around the decision versus saying, hey, good for you, pursue what you feel like you're called to pursue. So I think just first, I would just kind of acknowledge to myself, like, hey, you're following what you think you're supposed to do. And so do it with your whole heart. And that's awesome. The nonprofit world, and I've described this to a few different people, but there's a spectrum, right? And so there's a spectrum of like, we are so passionate about the mission and vision of this organization. The business side, that is what it is. And so a lot of those organizations are not sustainable. And then on the opposite end is like, we are so focused to make sure this business is being run great that they miss out on the mission and vision.
Right.
So for me, I probably err on the side of business. So it just would be, Chad, focus on the relationships over the tasks. Don't let your goals and priorities overshadow that of others. And then also just take your time. Things don't happen overnight.
That's great. Let's talk about another kind of balance that people have trouble with sometimes in the business world, which is work-life balance. I think a lot of progress has been made in this respect. In the 50s, I think we basically got this completely wrong. And now I think we get it largely right. They're not to say there aren't still people who, pour their life into their job for 105 hours a week and then, unfortunately, are no longer with us by the time they hit, 50, 55. But what do you think as a business community as a whole, we've made a lot of progress, but what do you think people are still missing about work-life balance?
Yeah, I would agree. I think there has been some movement in the positive direction with work-life balance. I think that COVID since March has added an additional complexity for people in that, because for many people, I'm thankful I'm working right now at the camp that I used to work for. So I get to be out of the house, but a lot of people are working at their kitchen table. They're working in their bedroom at a desk. I think what's missing from the conversation, it's not necessarily as much about the physical, okay, I'm home by X time, or I'm present on the weekends, or even the mental, like I'm mentally present. When I think of doing work-life balance well, and I'm not perfect at this, especially, through the nature of my job, I go through busy seasons regularly, but I'm not focusing on the physical or the mental as much as the emotional aspect of it. Like, I've been trying to be really intentional about finding my identity in the things that matter most, not finding my identity in my work. And so that's focusing on my relationship with God first, focusing on prioritizing the relationship with my wife. And what I'm finding is when I'm focusing on these things that matter most, I'm actually better at work too. So it's kind of like one of those circular things. And so I feel like that's what's a lot of people focus on time and mental energy, but really emotionally, what are you tied to?
Yeah, I agree completely with that. And I think a lot of it, like you said, a lot of it is bound up in identity and a lot of it is bound up in stress. What are you, what is stress worthy? And one of the reasons, the job that I'm in right now, one of the reasons that I took this job is because the approach of the other people involved is that this should be, it's not always going to be fun. And there are definitely times when it's not particularly fun. But COVID, like you said, was a great example. But it shouldn't be, going back to what we were talking about a moment ago, it shouldn't be putting us in an early grave. This is, I work in the financial sector, which is historically a very high stress industry. And, investing money is, that's, that it can be really, really, really high octane and go, and a lot of around the industry, less so than it used to be, but there a lot of drug issues, and a lot of alcoholism, that sort of thing, and we were determined not to live that way. Not just because we feel like it's harmful for us, but also because it's not the best way to work. And so, after finishing my MBA, I chose to stay here rather than go out and, in all likelihood, make more money elsewhere, but have less time and be more stressed. And the emotional component of it, have my identity, like there's kind of a gravity to that sometimes, and you can feel your identity being pulled away from the things that matter most and into a place, especially if you're spending more time there. The more of your time that's bound up in the job, it's hard not to feel your identity sucking toward that. If that analogy makes any sense.
There's no doubt. And I think that's one of the key things that leaders today need to focus on, especially with the generation that's coming up. Again, kind of as a cusp or millennial, there's nothing that gives me more pleasure. I had one of my staff members yesterday say, "Hey, my mother-in-law's in town. Would you mind if I take the afternoon off and spend some time with her?"
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, that is awesome. So how much more trust is built, and how much more productive is he going to be, because he knows that he can come and ask for the afternoon off to spend with his, and no vacation time given or having to put in that request. And so things like that as we are moving into deeper leadership roles, getting that ingrained into the culture just make us much more holistic people that are going to function so much better at work.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Let's move to some rapid fire. What do you consider your most valuable failure?
It's the different opportunities where all the stars have been aligned, and I'm like, this is it. This is what's going to happen. And I think of there's a large investment firm out of Austin, Texas, and I'm like, this is my dream job. I know the guy on the inside. The interview went great. This is going to be what I'm going to do. I'm going to love it. And that door was closed, and I was so confused. I'm like, this was my position. And then looking back, if I didn't have that failure, I wouldn't have gone to grad school. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I think the most valuable failures for me are the areas where I can look back and recognize, like, this door was closed and God had other opportunities for me that were even better than what I had planned on my own.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. If you wrote an autobiography, what would you call it?
I wouldn't write my own autobiography. So I asked my wife, I was like, what would the title of my autobiography be?
If I made you write my biography.
Yeah, right. I'm going to delegate this to you. She said, I know what it would be. It would be Jack of all trades, master of none. And I'm like, you're a genius. That's true. So kind of a short story. My grandma, when I was little, said, Chad, you're a jack of all trades, master of none. And I was so small. I don't know how old I was. I was like, I don't know what that means. And I remember just very deeply pondering, like, jack of all trades, master of none. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, that's really panned out. Like my grandma had a keen eye, even at a young age, for kind of the way that I was wired. And so I actually take great pride in that because it allows me to interact with a lot of different people. But then on the back end, kind of a shadow side, it also alludes to the fact that my strength and worth are found in Christ because I'm not a master of anything. So everything that I'm able to do is because of his grace, not because of me.
I like that. And it's so it's kind of challenging on this show sometimes to like, so you and I happen to share the same faith. But I think regardless of what a person's particular faith choice is, like we welcome all creeds, we welcome all religions or no religion. We try to be, equal, not equal opportunity, but you know what I mean, in that respect. But I think if a person is a person of faith, whatever that faith may be, for a huge piece of their identity to be bound up in that is entirely appropriate. And so whether you're a Christian or something else, anything else, it is the idea that is where you seek maybe not mastery, but identity, like you've, kind of the recurring theme here. Yeah. I love that message. I love that message because of the concerted lack of mastery elsewhere presses you into that space.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great way to say it. I like that. I like that visual too, of being pressed into the space because of that. I think that's neat.
Yeah. What is your fondest memory of TAMU?
I have a lot. I want to really give credit to the Mays MBA program, but then also the group that we had in our cohort that graduated in December 2014. We really embraced our time there, and we really spent our time in meaningful ways. Sometimes meaningful ways included one of my highlights, which was playing intramural sports. We did a lot of other things that were probably a little bit more professional, but I love playing the intramural sports. Highlight was probably the NBA flag football tournament. We were down at Rice University in Houston. Our team was for sure going to win. I was the wide receiver. In the final game, I broke my finger and we lost. So I'm not saying it was because I broke my finger, but hey, you just never know. But yeah, that flag football tournament was a lot of fun. It just kind of sums up, intramural sports were so much fun.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate the mention of Rice University, another place that's close to my heart.
Yeah, there you go.
What habit have you developed recently that you would say has greatly contributed to your continuing success?
Yeah, I think there are two. One is, so in the Bible, in John 15, it talks about abiding in Christ. And so I think trying to attune myself through prayer and reliance on God to work through me rather than to work through my own strengths. And waking up every morning and saying, God, I want to abide in you today. And I want my fruitfulness to be through you, not through my own strength. Right. I think that's a really, really big one. And then also, it's probably been 2 years now. With my job, there's been a lot of different buckets, a lot of different areas going. So I don't know. Are you familiar with Michael Hyatt?
Yeah, the name rings a bell.
So he's kind of a productivity and a productivity coach in a way. So he has the concept of the big three. And so it's basically every day I do it in an Excel document. What are the big three things that I have to accomplish today? That's both personally and professionally in order to make the day a win. And so when it feels like there's a mound of things that need to get done, boiling it down to like, okay, what are the most critical things that actually have to be done today and executing on those? Really, it sounds so simple. It's been a game changer for me.
Huh. Yeah, I like that. Anyone you'd like to send good bull?
Good bull. Yeah. I don't want to be redundant here, and I don't want to make this cliche, but I think, first and foremost, I have to thank Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior.
Good bull, Jesus.
Yeah, Team Jesus. The older I get, the more I realize how he's been pursuing me into a closer relationship with him. We live in a world that's so laser focused on us. Like, what's in it for Chad? And I'm probably the most selfish, self-serving, self-seeking person that I know.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so thankful that despite who I am, God continues to bring me closer in relationship with him, because the reality is you can never understand how much God loves you and the wonderful plans that he has for your life if you're not connected to him. So I'm just super thankful for that. And if anybody has questions, or, you can look on my LinkedIn or whatever, shoot me a message. I'm happy to share more or talk more about it whenever.
I love that. Love that. Chad, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. It was a lot of fun, man. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed the episode with Chad. For our top 3 takeaways, I wanted to first talk about the power of the layoff exercise. I have never been on the student side of the layoff exercise, but I have been the laid off on the layoff exercise in the management course that we have here in the MBA program. So students, I haven't done it for the MBA program because they know me too well, but I've done it for some of the other MS programs. And it is so fun to be part of that activity. I cannot imagine being a student on that end. And there are some good actors in Maze who will, like y'all said, cry, scream, throw things. I can't cry on command. So I just got really obnoxious, and I would always try to grab my phone and email all my colleagues and not pay attention to what they were saying. And I was pretty annoying as the person being laid off, but it's a fun and productive, as Chad said, exercise.
I'd like to posit a theory that being the actor in the laid off exercise makes you more of your you not who you secretly are underneath, but it brings out the worst of your shadow side or whatever. That's a great, well-stated theory, Ben.
Yeah, it magnifies whatever that is, right? Because mine is distraction. So I'm like, what can I do during this session that's going to be really annoying? I'm going to get really distracted and not listen to what the person's saying and pretend like I'm telling all my friends that I got laid off so they have a little warning.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm like, okay, but can I go back to my computer and get my pictures? Okay, but can I go back to my computer and get all the files that I have? Okay, but can I? And they're like, oh, can you just listen to what I have to say? They're trying to get through this script. Just cooperate for 5 minutes. No, I will not cooperate.
I feel like I would be the easiest layoff exercise. I would be a total pushover. I would be the person in the layoff exercise who would be saying, "I know how hard this must be for you," as the person is laying me off.
I think that's how it would be in real life, but you're not they tell you to make it hard on them in the exercise.
Yeah. What would
because you want them to have a real experience. I've had some students that did a really bad job laying me off, but I had this one woman, I could not break her. Nothing I did, she was so on point. I was like, man, you're going to be good at this. She was in the MSHRM program. I was like, oh, you're going to be really good at this part. But man,
yeah,
she was, I feel kind of bad for her because she was so good at it. They're going to make her do it all the time. So
yeah, I would be a denier. I would be like, I'm not laid off. You're laid off.
Yeah.
Do you think this is funny?
No, I'm not. No,
not you.
No. I got it. The person laying you off. You're like,
right.
But that would be very confusing for them since that would not be the case.
Yeah, I would just try to confuse. If I'm supposed to be difficult, I would probably try to confuse them.
Yeah. I should say that these are not real layoffs, and we have the utmost sympathy for anyone who has experienced either end of this in real life. But the exercise certainly is fun and productive for sure.
Also, after I had to do this exercise for Weston's class, I saw regularly the woman walking through Maze that I had to lay off. And I Like I would get like a little bit of like micro PTSD every time I saw her. First of all, my reaction would be, why are you still here? And then it like walking around maze. And then it would be, ugh. So yeah, I got it far worse than she did for sure.
I could understand that for sure.
She probably saw me and was like, why is that guy looking at me weird?
Yeah, she probably didn't remember because she did 8 of those that day.
Yep. And I'm not a particularly memorable person to begin with.
True. Totally generic, Ben.
Yes, indeed. What's next?
For our second takeaway, I wanted to talk about, we talked a little bit in the episode about the social impact mindset, and I just think that's an important reminder. So Chad is in the nonprofit sector, which is amazing. And a lot of our students go in the nonprofit sector. It's a great option for some students, but just a reminder that a lot of companies are really working toward having a positive social impact, and that our students can go that direction too, that they can go in a for-profit company and have a significant impact and be part of something, kind of the early phases of something, of seeing companies really embrace more of a social impact mindset.
Yes. You can do good business and still drop some bows on evil in the world.
I like that. For our last takeaway, I thought what y'all said about the emotional aspect of work-life balance was really important, that it's not just the hours I'm spending at work, but the energy I'm spending towards work. What is worthy of my stress? And that if my mind is still running when I'm at home, even if I'm not on my laptop, that is still compromising work-life balance in some ways. And that's okay for a period of time, but as a long-term way of life, that may not be the best mode, and that we might miss out on that emotional or stress aspect of it a little bit. So just the question, what is worthy of your stress, is a question I'm going to work towards asking myself more often as a result of this episode.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that our dear friend, Professor John Krychek, would say, what is worthy of your presence as well? Because my lovely wife, Madison, has such strong radar for when I am there, but not quite there. And I do my best to always be present when we are spending time together, whether it's just the two of us or whether we have Brielle, whether we're playing with Brielle as well. But if I'm not on my game and really focusing in on spending that time and being there in the moment and enjoying what we're experiencing together, she knows. She always knows. Mm-hmm. And that's good. It's a good check for me because, I work hard on this, but it's good to have accountability for it as well. And being present, that's the best way to be.
Yeah. For Ryan, that's really important too. And he would rather me not be in the room than be in the room and not be present. And I can respect that. And yet it is challenging for me. So it's interesting.
I don't even want you in here, Shannon.
Basically,
he doesn't sound like that.
No, not at all. But he would rather spend 5 minutes of quality time a day together than 5 hours of distracted time. Mm-hmm. I should say that your lovely wife has got me started on meditation. And so I'm working on that too. But it's not easy for me.
I've watched one of the Ziva videos and I really enjoy watching Emily Fletcher speak. She has this very, very charismatic way of being, and I feel like she's talking right to me. So Ben, when you begin the Ziva practice, what's really important to keep in mind is it's just, I don't know. It's fun to listen to. The late night DJ voice is strong with this one. Yeah,
she's got it down. All right, well, you want to close us with a quote?
I would love to close us with a quote. Good fortune has followed me all the days of my life, and all I can say on my own behalf is that I've never failed to appreciate it. That one's anonymous.
Let's appreciate it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. If you have a moment to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review, it really helps. Really helps. So thanks for tuning in.
An MBA from Texas A&M University can take your career to a whole new level. With full-time and weekend options, Texas A&M suits your schedule. So get a better gig. Visit mba.tamu.edu.
Looking to start a podcast? Trying to tackle questions like, how do I record? How do I edit?
How can I get music for my show? What equipment do I need? How do I distribute it? Good news. The podcast architects are here to help, whether that's from start to finish, fixing the audio quality, helping you get the episodes posted. Go to podconsulting.co. Everyone has something worth sharing with the world.